Hey guys, welcome to the tutorial. For the first half of this video, I will be covering the costume portion, and then the second half I will be covering the hair and makeup portion. Timestamps are going to be linked in the description box below. Starting out, I'm showing you some of the clothing items I picked up at the thrift store that I used as fabric swatches to create my Viking Warrior costume. All three of these pieces cost close to $10 altogether, and you may have similar items at home that you can use to make a similar outcome to this costume as well. The first thing I did was remove the neck portion of this winter vest, as well as cut out the inner lining. These customization steps might be optional for you depending on the climate you will be wearing this costume in. I live in Florida, for example, so a lot of the edits made are to minimize the layers of clothing I'll be wearing to make it much more comfortable for me to wear. This is the reason you see me removing a majority of the fuzzy filler that was sewn into this vest. It won't look perfect on the inside, but no one will see it once this part is done. I then took this flowy blue top and cut the sleeves off it. I did this again to minimize layers, and then we'll be sewing them onto the vest. You can see I went ahead and pinned the sleeves to the vest. I then took a needle and thread and then sewed all those pieces together to create one piece. With this brown leather jacket, I used a ton of fabric from it to complete my costume. The first thing I did with it was cut out the whole back portion of the jacket and remove the inner lining from it. This piece I felt was perfect to resemble the look of a protective vest worn in battle. So you can see I cut it to fit perfectly on the front of the costume. I then hot glued it just on one side of it so that I could easily access the zipper of the vest when I was putting the costume on and off. Now to accessorize the costume, I made some chainmail looking pieces. This chainmail is actually made out of collected pop tabs that you can either collect yourself or buy for an affordable price online. The chainmail pieces will decorate the front chest of the costume as well as the shoulders. Here's a brief tutorial on how to prep the pop tabs to make them able to be woven together to look like chainmail. You'll want to make sure all of the sharp connector pieces are removed using a wire cutter. And then with the needle nose pliers, you'll want to bend the tops of the pop tabs just slightly to create a small angle. I did this for all of them that I worked with. This is a tedious process that takes some time up front, but an easy, mundane task that can be done easily in front of a TV or on a road trip of some sort. Then with a wire cutter, a snip will be made in all of the top portions of the pop tabs. Make sure this cut is centered when you do this. You can see that the two ends can be separated easily to be able to slide them onto each other. So to create the piece that I have already finished on the screen here, I'll show you to the best of my ability how I wove each piece together to create the quad. And at the end, you'll want to make sure to straighten out all the aluminum openings that are cut into the pop tabs so that the design doesn't accidentally unweave when you try it on. For the chainmail shoulder cuffs, the design was a little different. You can see I have all of my pop tabs prepped off to the side. I then began to start weaving them together in sort of a zigzag pattern to create the first few rows. Going from top row to bottom row, I slowly added the pop tabs. Make sure that all the pop tabs are facing in the same direction. I then continued this pattern all the way down. And once I had a few rows formed, I then continued each row by eliminating one pop tab on each side to create this sort of tapered looking effect. To attach it to the costume, I used hot glue. One tip is to maybe throw some stay stitches in on some areas to help you figure out where you want the shoulder cuffs to sit when it's worn. I definitely did a lot of try-on tests when trying to fit these shoulder cuffs. I also use hot glue for the quads to decorate the chest piece, and then I attach Velcro to the other side of that chest piece again so that I can easily get the costume on and off and access the front zipper of the vest too. To create some of the accessories for this costume, I cut up some strips of leather from the jacket and then glued them into sort of this belt-looking shape to go across the front of the costume. I used a bowl to outline a circle and filled it in with a sand-colored paint. This will be the centerpiece for the belt. I then painted a design that is quite familiar to the Vikings, actually. This design is inspired by the TV show Vikings on the History Channel, and some of you might recognize it. According to the show, the meaning of this design is loosely based on a rune from the Scandinavian alphabet meaning wealth. It's also inspired by the branches of a tree, signifying strength, growth, and family. With a Sharpie, I drew fake little stitches around the circle to make it look like it was sewn on. And then with a leather cord, I wove it through a large embroidery needle and then snipped small holes in the leather for the needle to go through. I also did this with these leather armbands that I cut out. These will eventually go on my forearms, and I'm going to show you guys here what that'll look like. So what I did was I took the leather cord and I basically weaved it through the holes in sort of a zigzag pattern, similar to shoelaces. I do want to emphasize that you want to make sure you have enough length at the ends to loosen the belt and armbands so that you can get them on and off your body easily. The last accessory is this fur. This fur happened to come from an old vest that I had that I didn't mind cutting up, but you can also get faux fur at any fabric store as well. I just took a hot glue gun and hot glued the fur onto the shoulder area on the front of the vest. And then on the back side, I just let it drape down, and I stuck some Velcro adhesives to the top too so that I could put the garment on and then secure the fur down afterwards to make it easy to put the costume on. With all the accessories done, here's what the costume will look like when it's all put together. Now, you can't dress up as a Viking warrior and not have a shield. So here I took a leftover cardboard box that I had and flattened it out to create my shield. This Sharpie attached to a string is actually a great hack to create the perfect circle when working on a big space. I went ahead and cut out my circle and then took the project outside to spray paint it with a thin layer of this white craft paint. The paint job on this didn't need to be perfect, but it just gave me a good base that my acrylic paint would show up on easily later. And then with a level, I sketched out my design. This one happens to be similar to the one that I painted on my belt earlier, so you guys should recognize it. And then I just mixed up some acrylic paint and painted the design onto it. And then to add some texture, I actually took some brown eyeshadow and a paintbrush and dirtied up the shield to make it better resemble a real wood one. And then lastly, I painted a black border just around the whole shield and let my project dry. For the centerpiece of the shield, I broke out my paper mache skills and covered a bowl with aluminum foil as sort of a mold to create the centerpiece. I then poured Mod Podge onto this plate and cut up strips of newspaper that were going to fit over the bowl. I just dipped the strips into the Mod Podge and then laid it in layers over the bowl. I used my little sponge paintbrush just to take any additional Mod Podge and sort of paint over it on top. And then really I just continued to lay the pieces in different directions until the whole bowl was covered. And then I make sure to let this dry overnight. It definitely took a long time for this to dry, but once it was dry, I brought it back outside and then I just spray painted it with sort of a black acrylic spray paint. And then I took some leftover newspaper just to fill in the mold that I created, just to fill in the hollow spot since the bowl that I used earlier is no longer there. And then I just used a glue gun to attach the centerpiece to the shield. On the back of the shield, I took these leather strips to be used as handles. These will be for my arm to go through and for me to hold on to when I'm wearing the shield, so I just used a hot glue gun to attach them. And this step completed my Viking Warrior shield. Now, the moment you've been waiting for, let's talk about the iconic hairstyles Viking women had. My hair is obviously inspired by the character Lagertha in the History Channel show Vikings. So the first thing I did was sectioned off the lower half of my hair and attached some clip-in hair extensions. This is optional, but I wanted to add a little length, and you might appreciate the thickness it'll give the bottom portion of your hair so that more of your real hair can be braided into the hairstyle. I used about 3 layers of extensions. Then I sectioned off the top middle portion with a comb. And then I clipped that section out of the way. Then I sectioned a smaller section near my temple and clipped that out of the way as well. Lastly, I clipped the bottom pieces of my hair so I just had my working section available at my hands. With this small working section, I separated the hair into 3 pieces and began a standard French braid. You can do a Dutch braid style too if that's more comfortable for you. They both will look great. I just went ahead and braided the section all the way down. When I got to the bottom, I grabbed 1 strand from the braid in my hand and took the other 2 strands in my other hand and slowly started to slide those sections up to create the snake braid look. I then spread the pieces out to add more fullness to it, and then I just secured the braid with an elastic. Taking the second section of hair down, I separated it and then created another French braid with the same snake braid effect at the bottom. I then went ahead and sectioned off the other side of my head and completed those same 2 braids on the other side. For the big top section, I added 1 more double clip hair extension underneath the hair to add some thickness to this braid. With my hair parted on the side, I started a French braid coming across the top of my head and then eventually going towards the back section of my hair. Once I got to this point, I combined the 3 sections I was working with to 2 sections to convert the bottom of this braid to a fishtail. For the fishtail, I took a small piece from the outside of the right section and crossed it over to meet the left. And then I took a small piece from the outside of the left section and then crossed it over to meet the right section. Again, I took a small piece from the outside of the right section and crossed it over to meet the left. And I took a small section from the left and crossed it over to meet the right. I repeated this all the way down the braid. Once it was secure with an elastic, I took some texture spray and sprayed the braid to help maintain any flyaways that could occur when I stretched the braid out. You see me here sort of picking at the braid to make it appear more voluminous in the areas that I wanted it to be. From there, I took this small section from the back left portion of my head and started another small French braid, guiding this braid towards the large French fishtail that I just did. I stretched out this braid to make it look more voluminous, and then I wrapped it around the large French fishtail and secured the whole braid with an elastic. Here you can see what the hair looked like with all the braids in. I then attached these single clip extensions into the front of my hair just to hide the short layers and add a little bit of length in the front. And then with a triple barrel curling iron, I crimped the ends of my hair all the way around my head to give it that wavy, worn-in look. And there is my Lagertha inspired hairstyle. But the look would not be complete without some bold black eye makeup, so I took a small black eyeliner and lined my waterline and the lids of my eyes. And then with some black eyeshadow, I smoked out the eyeliner to create a blown out effect. And there you have all of the pieces necessary to create the perfect Viking Warrior costume. I hope you guys enjoyed this video tutorial and are inspired to make your own at home. I love making homemade Halloween costumes each year and look forward to unveiling them to my friends every time. If you're interested in seeing more tutorials like this one in the future, feel free to subscribe to my channel and like and share this video to let me know that you enjoyed it. But it wouldn't be a proper sign off if I didn't leave you with this one special exclamation: Skull.